I survived 100 days on a deserted island in Minecraft Hardcore, a completely original idea invented by me. With nothing but cold, unforgiving ocean all around me, I transformed this small mound of sand and dirt into an epic island paradise. So if you want to see that, and also to see how far I can progress over the next 100 days, make sure to watch to the end of the video. Also, if you go on to enjoy the video, please consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps me out a ton. Okay, day 1, attempt 1. Definitely my first attempt, not my third. This is my first attempt. I decided to be a little bit quirky and start by chopping down my first tree, after, of course, purging the land of its inhabitants. I just had one problem: my fist wasn't enough to exterminate the natives, so I immediately began speedrunning stone tools. I mined down and collected exactly 20 pieces of cobblestone, just enough to make a full set of stone tools and a furnace. I then chopped down the remaining trees on the island, and committed genocide. But I left one alive just so he has to live with the trauma of seeing his entire family die before his eyes. And then I decided to start a little farm. My next objective was to get full iron armor and tools, so I took to the mine and began digging until I found iron. But then I gave up, I guess? My second objective is food, and our only options for food in the early game of this challenge is fish and dried kelp. So I went around whacking fish. I returned from collecting food just as the sun began to set and began cooking the food. Then I made a chest. Yeah. Then I realized my island was pretty dark, so I made some torches and lit it up. Wood is going to be a pretty important part of this challenge because you can smelt wood using wood into charcoal. So I began our tree farm. Then I went back to our first objective of getting iron. Diamond!
Oh my god, bro.
And then I made my first iron pickaxe and went back to mining for the rest of day 1. I kept mining until I ran into this water cave. It looked pretty cool, but I don't have respiration yet, so I just blocked it off. I picked a different direction to mine in and finally found some iron. Then I went back to the surface, heightening our mine's ceiling along the way. I collected some wood and then smelted the iron we got and was able to make a few more tools. I went back to mining and decided to mine backwards. Definitely not, because I've already played this seed twice and I know there's a giant cave with a bunch of ores in like 20 blocks. Whoa, would you look at that? It's a giant cave with a bunch of ores. Wow, and I guess it's a slime chunk too. I slowly killed off the mobs and lit up the massive cave, and then collected all of the ores, including these diamonds. Oh, I mean diamond, singular. Oh, and I fell into this hole. Yeah. I got to smelting all the ores, and on day 3, I was able to make my first full set of iron armor and tools. I then started collecting a bunch of dirt and sand from under the island. Why would I be collecting so much dirt and sand right now, you may ask? Well, I don't know yet. I mean, I'm watching the same degenerate play Minecraft you are, so... Basically, my plan for this island is to build a giant ring of glass with a bunch of different areas dedicated to different things around it. But I need dirt for the flooring of the different areas, and I need a bunch of glass too, so... Oh yeah, and then a trident guy showed up. I then went back to the cave and continued exploring. I found this enderman, and when I killed it, I got an ender pearl. Wow. On day 4, I was still in the caves and I found some deep slate coal. That's like the second rarest ore in the game now, I think. After fighting with some absolute delinquents and standing my ground to fight like a man, I decided to dig down deeper to mine for diamonds. But what I found instead was another cave system that I definitely didn't already explore in a previous attempt. But yeah, I spent the rest of the day just exploring the cave, collecting iron and some gold and redstone, and killing mobs and stuff. On day 5, I continued mining down to Y-58 to mine for diamonds. And here's me finding my first vein of diamonds on the way down. Listen to me, so excited. Wow. Once I got there though, I guess I got tired of not seeing the sun, so I just went back up to the surface. Then I spent the rest of the day collecting wood, mining more sand, smelting the sand into glass. On day 6, I continued gathering sand and wood, and then began work on terraforming the island. I just want the island to be a little bit smaller and more circular for the ring of glass we're gonna build around it later. So yeah, I spent like the rest of the day doing that. I also spent like a third of the day fighting off phantoms. And on day 7, I continued to terraform the island. And then I accidentally killed the turtle who I forgot to name. Oh no, I killed him. Rest in peace, turtle. Now it's time to work on the house. I decided on a pretty basic